Good evening, my people. Welcome. Hi, everyone. I'm Afua Anokwa, the Director of Marketing here at the International Spy Museum. I'm so very thrilled to have you join us for tonight's spectacular program, Birds Aren't Real, with an evening with Peter McIndoe.
It's whatever you want it to
be. Thrilled to have you here. As many of you know, we lost Peter to the cause just a few weeks ago, if you've been paying attention. But like a phoenix rising from the ashes, he has joined us tonight, one night only, to tell his story. All jokes aside, Peter has been on a very long 7-year journey growing the Birds Aren't Real movement. He's going to be interviewed about his brand new book, Birds Aren't Real, by our very own Amanda Ohlke. If you haven't had a chance to get the book, following this event, there will be a book signing, and you can get Peter to autograph that for you. Amanda has read the book ear to ear, and is telling that she would be in charge of this wonderful interview because Amanda has chickens, birds of a feather. She's got several chickens in her home, so she's very dedicated to this opportunity. So after this conversation, we'll be taking questions. There's a microphone right over there. Questions will probably start around 7 or 7:15, so if you've got a question for Peter, make sure you speak directly into that microphone. We are recording this for our YouTube channel, so we don't want to miss any of what you say. So without further ado, Peter and Amanda. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Afua. Thank you so much. And Peter, thank you so much for being with us this evening. And so can you explain right off the bat, how is it that you are with us posthumously? How did you come to be here?
That's a great question. Hey guys, I'm Peter. It's very nice to see you all tonight. Recently, it was declared on our Instagram account that I'm dead. I would like to make it clear to this room, I'm not dead. But if we could keep that in this room, I would really appreciate it. So just between us, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that you're not dead. We have been wondering for the last couple of hours, and we're very excited about this. So tell us a little bit, how did Birds Aren't Real start?
What's
the inside story?
Okay, it's story time. I'm gonna tell you guys a little wonderful story. About 7 years ago, which is crazy, it's been 7 years. I was in Memphis, Tennessee, and did not know that I would spend the next 6 years of my life doing a fake conspiracy theory, claiming that every bird was a robot. I did not know I would do that. But I was living in Fayetteville, Arkansas at the time, and I went to visit a friend in Memphis, Tennessee. It just so happened that there was a march happening, a demonstration downtown. There were protesters and counter-protesters, and I was a really obnoxious 18-year-old who thought it would be funny to hold up a sign that had nothing to do with anything that was going on at the rally. You know, just something that had nothing to do.
As you do.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done it now. I think if I had seen that person now, I would have been like, he's got to get out of here. But at the time, I wrote down the 3 most random words that came to my mind, which were, birds aren't real. And I didn't know what it meant, and just kind of was walking around this rally, and people started asking me, what does that mean? And I just, made up whatever I could think of first, which was that they're robots. Birds are robots. I'd say, what do you mean? It's like, oh, I'm part of a movement that's been around for 50 years. Naturally. We know every bird is a robot. They're like, well, why haven't we heard about that movement if it's been around for 50 years? I'm like, oh, it's been censored. They've censored it so heavily. And, they brought me back now because they said it's hard to censor something, if it's viral. And so then I left the rally and didn't think much of it. I was going to school in Arkansas at the time for psychology, and ended up getting sent a video of myself in Memphis. I had no idea someone took it, just like being that guy, being the bird guy, claiming, I remember there's a video, someone's like, what do you mean? And I was like, can you prove to me that bird is real? I pointed up at a bird. They could not. No. They couldn't prove it. And so I became really interested in this as I looked at the comments and saw there were just hundreds of people that thought I was serious. They were like, oh yeah, I think I've heard of this movement that's been around for 50 years. Or, oh, this country is really going to a bad place. And I then, about a week later, received a video of a cafeteria, a high school cafeteria. And they were chanting, birds aren't real. Like, birds aren't real. All standing on their tables. And I thought, how odd, how interesting. Because I just kind of walked in Memphis one day and then left. And then I started getting, sent more images of birds aren't real being graffitied on walls in Memphis. And so then I was like, okay, if I don't lean into this, I'll always wonder what would have happened if I did. And so
No.
Yeah.
You die.
I end up dying, yes. It's the beginning of the end. I dropped out of college and I moved to Memphis. And was like, I'm going to play a character that thinks every bird is a robot, and I'm going to build out a lore and write out a actual convincing history and see if I can trick the media and the internet into thinking that I'm serious. And so that started a 6-year journey of starting something called the Bird Brigade, which is our boots on the ground activism network, essentially. We had...
It's all in here.
It's all in this
here.
book.
It's all in here.
This book, yeah. We had 50 chapters in every state in the U.S., this is true. And each chapter had a president and a vice president, and we had a minister of the Bird Brigade, who's my friend Claire from college. And she would get on Zoom, a monthly meeting with all the presidents. They'd plot and plan, and they would organize rallies, and there was a point system, so we'd send out activism kits every month, and if they spread it across their town, we'd send them more activism kits. So it just started the snowball effect of seeding this idea. I became very interested in not thinking about it like a comedy project, but thinking about it more like a flat Earth type thing. Like I'm competing with flat Earth.
Yeah. I think I want yours to win. I really do. Yeah. And you know what you really have in your hip pocket is the whole baby pigeon question.
Yes.
Where
yes.
are they?
Yeah.
Where
Have you ever seen a baby pigeon, folks? Have you seen a baby pigeon? No, we haven't. That's because they come out of the factory as adults. No organic growth.
So what have you learned over the course of this project,
Yeah.
of this process, and how has it culminated in a book?
Oh my God, great question. Yeah, I've learned a lot. A lot is the answer. And I learned a lot by, I think, being out on the road and sort of having this accidental social experiment happen of what happens when you're a conspiracy theorist and people think you're for real. We had these chapters, right? These 50 chapters. And so I thought I should get out off the internet into the real world, was the character's messaging. If I wanted to get this idea really out there and start a true movement that would, as we would chant at our rallies, we wanted to deactivate and repopulate. We wanted to deactivate all the bird drones, but not just do that, we wanted to repopulate America with birds. Birds are beautiful. We love birds, We just don't like the fake ones. And so I got a van, covered it in decals that said birds aren't real. You can see it right here on this picture, and drove around the country. We had our slogans on the van. Like, we had one that said bird watching goes both ways on the side. If you think about that for a second, we had one that said, if it flies, it spies. Pretty good. But I think going around the country in that van, I would be in different areas and people would walk up to me thinking I was a real conspiracy theorist. I'd be out there, like, handing out flyers. And there would be quite a few moments where people would walk up and just start telling me how stupid I was.
Oh.
And how uneducated I was and this and that. And I think
That's not the way to help someone change their mindset.
Yeah, I think that was an interesting learning. Was like, all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, this is what it must feel like to be an actual conspiracy theorist. I'm next to this van and everyone is looking at me like a zoo animal, essentially, and I think I learned a lot about what it may be that makes people, I guess, gravitate toward conspiracy theories in the first place. So I was trying to play this character as much as possible, to the point where my character, I would be so nervous, I'd go on the news and throw up sometimes. Or I would would have I don't know. I think moments where I was just looking for community and was really just like a lonely, nervous character having a hard time, and that was really, I think, the character beneath any of like the bird stuff.
Did that bleed over into your life? I know this isn't on our list of questions, but I'm super curious. Did
Yeah.
it affect your
Being in character
your
so much?
non-character?
Oh yeah. I mean, I spent 4 years trying to be a bird truther. As seriously as I could,
Yeah.
you know.
That's some dark stuff.
Yeah, I kind of was looking at it like a public soap opera, you know, like a ongoing story that happens year over year, very much like real conspiracy theories. You can look at the QAnon Wikipedia page; it'll tell you year over year how that happened, and so it's almost like if you were to write that fictionally.
So how did you decide to end that character? Because we were going to address that a little bit at the beginning.
Yeah, so I mean, I started doing this in 2018. And by doing this, I mean, yeah, playing the bird character in the van, going around, building out this lore more and more. And it got to a point where it had snowballed to an extent where we were doing these rallies and there would be 1,000 people that would show up at a rally. And all the people were in on the bit, they were in on the joke, but the media wasn't perceiving it that way, which was perfect. Yeah. That was a big part of the goal, was saying, okay, can we convince the media that we're serious? It was almost a test. Like, how much do people really fact check? Because, like, if you go on our Instagram, if any of you have followed our Instagram or website, it's pretty clear it's a joke. If you really watch and listen to the characters, you know, like, we used to talk about it like there was a wink in our work, you know, like there would be, it would come across as very deadpan and serious. And by wink, I mean, like, if I'm talking to you deadpan and seriously right now, but then I turn to you guys and wink real quick and then go back, they know I'm joking, you know, and I'm not serious. And so, you know, for instance, we had this one time we hired an actor to play an ex-CIA agent named Eugene Price, who was just tormented after years of doing this, you know? He's like, I worked on this project, I killed all these birds. And so we made this character. He reached out to us and was just like, I gotta get this off my chest, you know? And so we made this whole video with him, and he was very serious. You know, we really decided early on that the concept itself was funny, and so the funniest thing we can do is be as serious as possible. And so we had Eugene Price, the name of the CIA agent, detailing something that happened called Operation Water the Country in the 1970s, where Dulles, the director of the CIA, sent, you know, planes over America dropping poisonous toxins, killing the birds. They disintegrate upon hitting the ground.
You know, so
It's not funny.
So Alan Dulles has this big role, real guy, real director of the CIA.
Yeah.
Is he chosen for this role because of where he is in the timeline?
Yeah.
Or did you guys have it in for Alan Dulles?
Well, both. We hate Alan.
Okay.
No, it was the timeline. You know, I think that we studied a lot of real conspiracies and found that a lot of conspiracy lore is a lot of real history. You know, a lot of the time there's just like, I guess, 10% tweaked, like a little dash thrown into the recipe that's not supposed to be there. And so a lot of the birds aren't real lore, and history is just, using real people from real times, verifiable things. Like, you can Google half the stuff in this Birds Aren't Real book, and it's real. It happened.
Yeah, there's a huge list of operations and, you know, just filtering through the book and facsimile documents. And how did you brush up on that to give it that twinge of reality? And what's up with old Truste? You gotta tell them about that.
Yeah. Old Truste, it was a hammer that Alan Dulles would use to whack people he disagreed with at the CIA. It's real. It's real. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the lore and character building was real, with just a little tweak on it, and a lot of it was, you know, adding in our own characters like Eugene Price and trying to build out like a bit of a cinematic universe. Really viewing it, again, like a soap opera.
But it's that sort of
characters.
propping up of things, like that taste of reality.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, that's real. I could Google that. So
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
how did you come up with the? And you list a lot of real and interesting operations in the book. How did you come up with Operation Water the Country as the title?
That's a great question. Okay. Well, we looked at a lot of, real names of actual operations.
Yeah.
Like Operation, like Acoustic Kitty, for instance, or
Close to our heart.
love it, or Operation Paperclip. It's or whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to do with those things exactly. So, we liked the name Operation Water the Country, which refers to watering the country with tons of gallons of poisonous toxins dropping onto birds, killing them. And we, I guess, had a lot of lore like that spread throughout. And the goal of the story in the present, I guess, of my character was to continue referencing and tying it back to the past and the lore that we were talking about. And slowly, the more interviews that happened, the more videos, you could piece together a story that happened and is happening, where there was an actual movement that was made up of anti-surveillance activists and animal rights activists that didn't like both aspects of what was happening. There were leaks coming out of the Pentagon that the government was killing off these birds with Operation Water the Country.
There's some wonderful presidential and world leader interchange email transcripts that you include in the book.
Yes.
Must have been hard to get a hold of those.
Yeah, there was a big email leak called Poultry Gate, where it was revealed that a lot of high-level government officials and A-list celebrities actually were involved with the bird drone surveillance plot. How many of you have seen The Incredibles? Oh my God! Okay, you can see how well the propaganda is working. How many of you remember the robot bird with the little eye in the jungle? You remember when Dash was sleeping? Yep. How many of you know the name of the director of The Incredibles? Brad Bird. It's Brad Bird. It's Brad Bird, folks. Yeah, it all starts to unravel slowly when you think about it.
So what is your favorite bit of manufactured lore?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I mean, we have all different types of drones, so we have surveillance drones. Then we also have, not every bird is a surveillance drone. There's public sanitation drones, for instance, who are the vultures, who clean up the roadkill on highways. Kind of the first example of AI taking human jobs, robots, was the vultures in the early 2000s cleaning up. There's different reasons for different birds. Like the bluebird may be my favorite bird drone. Because they made the bluebird so beautiful and blue that it would draw your eyes. They could scan your retinas after.
It's diabolical.
You look at it. It really is diabolical. It's unbelievable. Yeah, it really. I mean, the bird robot crisis. They said we would live to see man-made horrors beyond our comprehension, and I truly feel like we're there. We're there with this.
So, what are your favorite stunts that you've pulled during this process?
Oh my gosh. I mean, we've had a few fun ones. We went out to Twitter headquarters one time. We brought like 700 people out there to demand they change their logo. Which
we might need to clap for that. Yeah.
Thank you. It took a lot. We marched around the building 3 times like Jericho. And we're able to put enough energy and life force around it to hopefully change the minds of the leaders to, change the logo from the horrible bird propaganda, which they did end up doing. We went to St. Louis and set a St. Louis Cardinals flag on fire on top of the van. That we got kind of chased out of there. We found out they didn't like that.
Yeah. That sounds dangerous.
Yeah. We went to Washington Square Park. That was really fun to hold a rally there. It was our biggest rally. There were 3,000 people there.
Oh, that's
It's actually
great.
the last one that we did. And we were demanding Mayor Adams shut down every pigeon in the city, which he did not. Yeah, I think that moments like that really kind of created the story. That's what I will remember, I think, looking back at it.
We had a big, chewy question about, what have you learned about the public and media literacy and disinformation? We threw everything into this. We were working on questions before. Disinformation, misinformation, propaganda, flat earth. Let's throw it all in there.
Right.
Now, what has this process taught you about the public?
That's a big question. I mean, I think honestly, it taught me a lot just being inside mind of the character as much as I could. I grew up in Arkansas, for context, so I grew up around a lot of conspiracy theorists. Pretty much everyone I grew up around was a conspiracy theorist. I was out, I was homeschooled in Arkansas, so I was kind of in this cult in a way. Way back in I remember when the Mitt Romney was facing off against Obama, a bunch of people in my community went out with posters to put around town that Obama was the Antichrist, naturally, and that we needed to stop him. And, that's the type of community that I was from. So I feel like when it came to this character, it was a very natural satire of oh, I'm just reflecting the type of thinking. And, the cadence was the same, the logic was the same as any of those arguments. It was just a different theory swapped in for those. And so I think when it got to playing a conspiracy theory character, I don't know, it would have been a shallow satire if it was just making fun of a crazy person. I feel like there's not a lot of value
Was
in
there
that.
joy in it? Did you have a lot of joy in this?
Oh, I had a great time.
Yeah.
To be clear, I had a great time.
I think that is really always attractive.
I had a great time. Yeah. But I think to play the character, it wouldn't have been, I don't know, to really get in the head of the character, I had to get in the head of the people I grew up around. And through that, I think, you asked what I learned about misinformation or conspiracy. I think honestly, a big thing I found out through years of playing this character was that the game of conspiracy seems to me to be more of a game of belonging than belief. It seems to be more about, I don't know, people having a sense of purpose or identity or community, which are all very hard things to get. I feel like I'm looking for that every day, so no shame to the conspiracy theorist. But I think that by joining a group like that, even if it is spending your life in a basement, thinking the Democrats are eating babies, to me, that's a sad thing. You have to ask yourself, what is rewarding that person? What are they getting out of that to make that? Clearly, it's not a good way to spend the one life you've been given here. So what is it that makes people do that? And I think that what they are getting out of it is they have a sense of a mission in life, and they have a sense of belonging. I have a group, and we have a purpose. Right. And that's my identity. If I'm on the other side of this, then I'm the good guy. I'm the hero of my own story. I'm not the victim. And I think that, you can kind of make yourself almost an Avengers level superhero if you go far enough into that thinking, where it can become a January 6th moment, or something where it does spill over into the real world when you're living in a fantasy almost that's giving you a sense of belonging. It's a dangerous game. It's a strange thing, but I do think.
Did you ever? Reading this, I walk a lot. I hike a lot. I'm like, man, these birds are looking at me. It was so funny. I just stop it a minute. It really got in my head for a minute. So did you ever start getting maybe they are?
Oh, I'm sure they are. If you look up, if you Google India bird drone, they're happening. It's real. If you Google China bird drone, China actually has bird drones. It's all real. I didn't know that when I started this, by the way. People just started sending me
links. Do you think any of them have visited you?
Oh, I think I'm being followed all the time.
Okay, okay.
Yes. No, I'll be walking and I'll think, oh, it's kind of cold outside. And I look up, there's just a cloud above me of birds following me as a shadow cast down.
Oh, my goodness. Well, before we turn it over to our audience questions, and I'm sure we have a bunch, we didn't really answer my colleague Arent's question about how did you end up. She was so interested in how this became a book.
Arent asked a great question, which was when you spend years trying to become the most insane person possible, how do you get a book made? Which is a great question. And it really happened when I came out of character. I played a character for a long time in Arkansas, trying to convince people that's who I really was, built a whole fake story, and got to the point where I felt like I had accomplished that mission when a lot of them, and became nationally syndicated news, that there was a real movement that had been around for 50 years that thought every bird was a robot. And they were reporting on the lore as real, and at that point I was like, whoa, I think this kind of crossed the finish line of proving something about media literacy, showing that you can really implant an idea in the culture, but wanted to stop it from snowballing in any unnecessary way. And so I came out of character. And I think, I never knew how I would do that. But at that point, the movement had gotten to a certain point where there was some interest about who is doing this. And So I ended up coming out of character with the New York Times, and it ended up being on the front page that this was a lie. This was a fake conspiracy theory. And to answer the book question, I found out that after you're on the front page of the New York Times, everybody wants to have you write a book. And so, yeah, thankfully our lovely publisher, Macmillan, reached out to us, and now this exists, which is just kind of a conceptual anthology of every idea from Birds Aren't Real.
It's very fun read, and lots of good pictures too, and tips on what chainsaw to buy.
Oh, yeah,
we expect a lot of information.
Yeah,
on
we have
chainsaws.
real actionable steps on how to combat the bird drone surveillance problem. If birds charge on power lines, a great way to solve that is cutting down the power lines. So we offer a great list of the best chainsaws on the market and price points depending on your budget.
And even a section for kids, so it's really for all ages.
Yes,
So,
it is.
well, let's, folks, if you have questions for Peter, please come to the microphone. We have about 10 minutes. We can do some audience Q&A. Do not be shy.
Wow.
Otherwise, we'll just keep talking, and you might regret where that will end up.
Wow. Lovely, lovely. Thanks for coming, guys, by the way. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thanks for coming.
Oh,
Hi
boy.
there.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. So I'm just kind of taking offense to the fact that you said birds aren't real, or that they are.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding.
That's it.
But did you rub shoulders a lot with a lot of like real conspiracy theorists, and are they kind of like out to get you now that you've come forth and said that this isn't actually true? Like, what's your relationship with all of those people who weren't just in it for the
Yeah,
bit?
that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, there's a pretty wide conspiracy theory about us that we're a CIA psyop, actually, meant to discredit conspiracy theorists. I've read some awesome like lore about me that's online. It's like fan fiction, kind of. But yeah, I really only met one real conspiracy theorist during my whole time doing Birds Aren't Real. I think there's a misconception that at like a lot of our rallies, it was a lot of real conspiracy theorists that came, when really everyone was in on the bit. It was people that understood it was a joke. And so there's one time a guy walked up to me and he was like, listen, like, I'm a member of the Scalia family. I know everything you're saying is true. I'm a West Point grad. I know the way that you're expressing it is absurd, and that's a really good way to put it into the culture. But I know what you're saying is true. And I was like, oh, this guy's awesome. Like, and then I start going back in character. I'm like, we're totally riffing right now. And then later, yeah, he DM'd me on Instagram, and his entire page was every type of conspiracy theory possible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's got to pick one, right?
Huh?
It's good to stick to one.
It's good to stick to one. I totally agree. But yeah, it's been an interesting time, I guess, meeting real conspiracy theorists. Yeah, that's really just been a limited amount.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi, I was curious about your view on just the timing of everything, because obviously conspiracy theories have been around for a long time and it's been a big thing in culture, but just the timing of you starting a fake conspiracy movement in 2018 is it's pretty remarkable, just the timing of it. Yeah, so I'm just curious about your perspective on all that.
That's a really cool point. Yeah, I mean, for context, Birds Aren't Real started 2 years before QAnon became a thing, and really started alongside the Trump presidency. It was in 2017, then really started in 2018, and I think that's, I don't know, I have wondered about that and how that affected the movement and the satire. I think that lunacy begets lunacy, and there's something about the reflection of something that feels manic that I think is somewhat cathartic. I became really interested in, like, when there are times of real chaos, what happens comedically with people, like, where does the art go, where does the comedy go? And if you look at, like, when World War I was happening, for instance, like the Dadaist movement, it was just kind of like this blossoming of absurdist comedy that came around in the early 20th century when the world was just falling apart. People started putting, like, toilets in museums and stuff, and, like, it just kind of changed. It just kind of tipped over to a certain point. So yeah, I think that is a really good point. It's been interesting watching it almost mirror the progression of conspiracy theories before and after QAnon being there. I think it really does just come back to lunacy reflecting lunacy. Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi. This question might be like slightly more serious, but
Let's get serious.
yeah. I was trying to think about close parallels to Birds Aren't Real. And two of the things that I came up with, one is like more absurdist comedy like Borat, right? Borat, especially the second movie, would be a close example of like someone playing a character. And then more controversially, I want to know your thoughts about this, the Satanic Temple. They do like, they're more policy focused. So how do you think like those relate to what you were trying to do with Birds Aren't Real?
Can you explain the Satanic Temple thing more? I don't want to speak on it without knowing how you see the parallels. Is it the sense of belief, or like you said, policy?
Yes, they're more policy focused. So they're like trying to basically argue for separation of church and state. And they have like a more policy focused angle.
I see. So you're saying that more so than them actually caring about.
Yes.
It's more so means for the argument of the separation of church and state.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that that's a really interesting take and it's a really interesting parallel to make. I think that I would, funny enough, liken it more to the Satanic Temple than Borat.
Okay.
Because it's a story that happens in the medium of the real world. You know, it's reality meant to make people, put a question in somebody's head, to almost be like a Rorschach test on American culture, on what you think about when you see this absurdist variable of bird guy, conspiracy theory. What does that make you think? And Borat, that is interesting. I think that is, it's almost like if he did that in real life. Or a different person. No one knew that he was a character or an actor. And they just saw him on the news like, oh my God, the country of Kazakhstan must be insane, But that's a really cool parallel. I totally see what you're saying. Yeah. Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mine's a lot less serious. I wanted to give you the chance to riff a little bit comedically, so I have some bird truther questions. My favorite one I probably wrote was, is Ducks Unlimited a front for the CIA?
Yes.
Okay.
Care to expand? What's the point of the presidential turkey pardon?
Presidential turkey. It's scoffing in our face, literally laughing in our face. It's literally laughing in our. I could go on. Thanksgiving is a whole bird worship ritual. Actually, we parade the birds down the streets. They make people pray to the birds in the middle of the table. It's
The giant birds floating above us.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Yeah.
So you talked a lot about how you were able to fool the media into believing that you actually believed the views that you were espousing.
Yeah.
What do you think it says about like saying things with confidence that can actually fool people, even for other people, it being clearly satirical?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that a big part of it may have just been the cadence and specific terminology that I learned growing up. Some of the things I was saying were basically the same, like Mad Libs templates of how to talk about an idea, just swapping out, Obama being the Antichrist with the bird drone surveillance crisis, talking about a problem that's sweeping the nation and blah, blah, blah. I also think that just being like a white man helped me out too, like just being on these rooms and having things people, I can just kind of say things, they'll take me seriously. I think that probably aided as well. I found that if you can have good lighting and say something with confidence, I was really looking into the Plandemic documentary. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Plandemic documentary during COVID. It was a really interesting case. It took over Facebook and became a massive phenomena where it was really just a video in very good lighting of a person who said they were a knowledgeable expert on something. And it was just like a white person in really good lighting. And it was taken totally seriously. And no one takes the time to Google, okay, who is this person? Do they actually know what they're talking about?
For your old friend here, tell me about the Plandemic very quickly.
Just to put it simply, it was, a doctor sitting down with an interviewer and saying, this is all a scam. This is all a scam. The vaccine doesn't do anything. There are, it's a plan by Fauci to blah, blah, blah. And it was a real interesting test in disinformation on how production value can be the legitimizer beyond, confidence or anything. Like what? Theranos is a great example, yeah, where production value is like, oh, well, like, even subliminally seeing the production, like, oh, the
This
lighting,
looks great.
the
This
framing,
looks
it
great.
looks good, it feels good, they're wearing the right thing. She's wearing a white coat, you know?
Oh,
And
she
so I
must
think
be
it's just
real.
like almost replicating those same variables. Like for the Eugene Price CIA interview, it was replicating the exact same thing that Plandemic did, just a different script. Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you.
thanks.
My favorite bird drones are chickens, so I would like to know what purpose they serve. But my actual question is, how did the CIA feel about all this? Have you ever been like contacted by them?
Oh my God, yeah, the CIA. Well, they've been following me for years now. No, I haven't had many direct encounters with the CIA, although they have posted some tongue-in-cheek things that we get tagged in a lot. Like they posted once, it's just a picture of a hawk, and it just said eyes in the sky. I sent an army of commenters to their page. Thousands of comments on the CIA's page. But that was really my main interaction with them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, and our last question.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing good.
I lived in the UK for the majority of my life, and there's been times where, like, you know, TV shows have done, like Panorama, they did the spaghetti growing on trees thing and fooled the public. I feel like this sort of movement would never have kicked off in the UK. So just from your experiences, why do you think America, even being in on the joke, was so happy to keep this going?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think comedy is so different in the UK as well. I'd be super curious to learn more about that because I think it is a uniquely American thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's a mystery to me as well. I mean, I know that in the UK, I guess more deadpan comedy, would you say, is the, like, I think people may be speaking that language a bit more, where they can pick up on the subtlety of the deadpan, the wink, you know, the tongue-in-cheek. I also think that, I don't know, I think that a big difference was, too, I think a lot of people did understand it was a joke, and then the people that didn't were sort of boomer legacy media, you know, who aren't as attuned to that comedic tone or language. But that's really, really interesting. I've wondered that too, about how it seems uniquely American, and even seeing how the idea ripples in other countries, America's like that sweet spot for it.
Are there any other countries where you had a devoted following?
Oh, there's a massive chapter in Brazil. Like, thousands of Brazilians.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right. I think we have Afua is going to close us out.
I do have a final question because I think you've left us wanting more. So what's next for you? What is the next iteration of your life?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, you're dead. I've heard whispers that something might be cooking. Is there anything you can share with us?
Yeah. So my next project, I'm very excited about it. I can't tell you about it, but
But you're excited.
in October, something will happen. And it will be the most talked about thing in the country. And you'll just have to see what that is. I will not be public facing on it, so I'm orchestrating it from behind. We have to re-enter the illusion stage, right? We can't, you know, I've blown the whistle on myself.
Your cover is blown.
My cover's
Your
blown.
cover is blown.
There you go, in true spy fashion. But
yep.
yes, come October, you'll see. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for your enthusiasm. And a little tip, Peter's going to be signing books, so if you could grab a book and get out through those doors, and he'll be set up on the other side, and we'll have our book signing. I do encourage you, if this is the first time you visited a spy museum, we do have programs that are virtual and in person, so check out our online calendar, and thank you all for spending the evening with us.
Thanks, guys.
Fly free!